Welcome to all of our attendees today. Thank you for joining us for this FAI webinar, Folk Alliance International webinar, presented by Ear Trumpet Labs. We would like to begin today's webinar as we begin all of our webinars with a digital land acknowledgement. We recognize the complexity and the privilege of gathering online today by sharing this acknowledgement that was written by Adrian Wong of Spiderweb Show in Ontario and adapted for our webinars. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's all take a moment together, shall we, to acknowledge the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking that we use every day. We're using equipment and high-speed internet that is not always readily available in many Indigenous and marginalized communities. And so we invite you, dear listener, to join in acknowledging our shared responsibility to make good of this time and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and accomplishment. If you would like to tell us more about the traditional stewards of the land where you are currently joining us from, you can find that information. Let me just plop that right in the chat box here at www.nativeland.ca, and you can enter your location and it will tell you who the stewards and original inhabitants of that land are, many of whom are still there today. So we're grateful also that this webinar is presented by Ear Trumpet Labs. Ear Trumpet Labs is a craft builder of unique microphones with distinctive designs, great feedback rejection, and a natural tone for acoustic instruments and voices. This year, they've gained popularity with artists looking for the best sound for their live streams, from Sarah Jarosz to Amethyst Kaya to Brett Eldridge. And you can find their recommended models, let me drop this in the chat box, at eartrumpetlabs.com/livestream. When you join the webinar, you have a control panel that appeared on the screen. And there's a Q&A. We'd ask for you to put your questions in the Q&A part of our control box, and keep the chat for comments and compliments for our intrepid panelists. Finally, a recording and a transcript of this webinar will be posted online in the coming days, and a link to that recording will be sent out to all of you and folks who signed up but couldn't make it today by the end of the week. Last but not least, when you close this webinar, a short survey will appear, and we would really appreciate any and all feedback to help us make our future offerings even better for you. We do offer these webinars free of charge, not only to our members, but to the community and, frankly, the whole world at large. So if you would like to support us, any support you can offer to help offset our programming costs is greatly appreciated. You can make a donation at folk.org/donate. And I'll tell you a little more about that later. Okay, let's get started with a couple of polls. First poll, who's in the room? Who do we have with us today? What is your industry role? Let's take a peek. I can see the poll happening in real time. The numbers are shifting. Ooh, I'm excited. It's full of my people. All right, we're almost there for answers on this. Just a few more. Here we go. So 56% of people in the room are artists, and with 11% being venues, 15 arts orgs. This will help us to orient our conversation today. We do have a second poll. We don't always ask two things, but today we will. What is your level of expertise in providing excellent audio for live streamed content? Are you very experienced? Not very experienced? Where are you at, people? Let us know. We want to know so that we're not answering basic questions if it's mostly folks who are super experienced. But I got a feeling it's going to be a nice split. Okay, great. So a great split between novice and experienced. Don't worry, no experience at all, people. This webinar is still for you. We're going to scaffold the learning today. And we are very, very lucky to have today's conversation moderated by the fabulous Blanche Israël, multilingual Moroccan-Canadian, making Halifax her home these days. She is the founder of Streamium, which is a live stream technician service for arts organization. And that's right, you people, brand newbies. She studied music. She tours with the incredible Jeremy Dutcher, and you can read the rest of her bio on the slide, handily provided. I shall hand the proceedings over to Blanche. Merci beaucoup pour être ici. Thanks for being here and for moderating today's panel. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Teresa, and for that wonderful introduction, and also those questions, so that we can all orient our discussion. I think that's really great. We have a really great panel in front of us, and also some great guests to chat with. And it's lovely to see that we have a great big group of almost 130 people tuning in. So don't be shy in the chat box. Put your questions, say hello, tell us where you are located using nativeland.ca. I also, working with Jeremy, I find it really important to recognize the different kinds of land acknowledgements out there. So this digital land acknowledgement was really cool, because it's very true that internet access is limiting a lot of people from these online spaces. And it tends to be in rural areas and northern areas where there are a lot of Indigenous people. So definitely glad that that was touched on. So welcome, everyone. I'm just going to kind of go through the agenda first, and then we will start chatting and getting to your questions. So basically what it's going to look like, we're going to start by talking about the essential components of a great audio setup for anyone who is acquiring equipment or setting themselves up at home or in a venue. And then we're going to move to the value of sound checks and how to do it right. We'll also talk about how to work with people remotely for your sound check, because it can be tricky to even hear what your video sounds like when you're in the middle of recording it. Then we will talk about managing multiple sources, multiple videos, multiple audio inputs to kind of give your at-home live stream that really professional feel without crashing and burning. We will go through towards the end some pro tips for your settings, tools, what software you might want to use. There were a lot of questions to that effect submitted before when you were registering for this. What exact tools and microphones and software and what environment are the best for live streams when you don't have access to a venue. So we'll talk about that. And then we will get to your questions at the end, and you can pop them in the chat box at any time, and we will sort of keep a running log and get to some of them at the end. And so, yeah, because we can't see you, do let us know who you are. And I'm going to start by introducing Jared Rivers with Folk Alliance International. Jared has been with FAI as membership manager for 7 years, and he's been working in Kansas City since his arrival on the music industry scene in 2005. He's worked, like me, as a gigging musician in bands, as well as a band leader, multi-instrumentalist, producer, and sound engineer. And with his experience in live venue sound, theater production, studio recording, he brings a holistic perspective to producing events. As membership and technology manager for Folk Alliance International, he manages all the data and technical expertise for programming and events. Jared, how is it going?
Hey, it's going great, Blanche. Thank you.
The house is quieted down in time for this panel.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah, you've got a really nice setup over there.
Oh, thanks.
So that's actually what I'm going to ask you about, your setup and people's setup. What are the essential components of a great at-home setup that's not going to give you any headaches and that's going to just wow everyone on Zoom and everywhere else?
Yeah, well, if that was a really easy question to answer, we'd all be doing it, I suppose. But, you know, with my background, for me, the audio is absolutely king. I find that when I'm even watching live streams myself, that I can deal with jumpy video or even lower quality video if the audio is nice. I can eat right. Yeah. But the minute that audio is terrible and I can't understand the song or the intent of the artist, I immediately disconnect, right? So for me, if you're going to invest in anything, it's invest in your audio and get it good. And it doesn't mean it has to be complicated. I know that early on in this, when the pandemic started, I was looking for a very, very simple way. And I think some of the other panelists were saying the same thing. How simple can we make it to get our live stream out early? And the company Dolby, who I think is renowned worldwide for their surround sound, released an app called Dolby On, which took all of their incredible AI processing, put it right in an app for your smartphone. So with a tripod, a smartphone, and a Wi-Fi connection, you could live stream directly to Facebook or YouTube with all of the audio processing of an intelligent engineer right in the software. It was incredible. And they saw the opportunity here and released it for free. And basically said, we weren't planning on releasing this till April, but pandemic. So here we go. Like, throw this out there. And so, but, you know, there are simple ways to upgrade that. You know, Shure released their Mv88 microphone, which can plug right into the end of a smartphone. So again, you've got a tripod, a smartphone, Wi-Fi connection, and upgrading that microphone just a little bit, you know, can go a long way. But I think it's important to control the things you can control, and that would start with the room. And so I know for me as an audio engineer, where I come from, I always think about signal flow from the beginning, the resonance of an instrument or the resonance of an artist's voice. And I try to capture that and get it all the way to the other end, which unfortunately for a lot of times is a smartphone speaker is what people are listening on. But you know, I think as artists, we all pray and hope that people have on a nice set of headphones and they're listening to us in HD. We hope and pray, I guess. But you know, you start with your room. It's really important. I mean, think about it, venues and studios, how much work they put in to making a nice, clean room with no reflections. And there are so many things you can do at home, curtains and bookshelves and tapestries and flags on the walls, or even just doing something as simple as rotating your audio setup so that you don't have a wall directly behind and in front of your microphone, right? Orient yourself at 45 degrees in your room so that all of those reflections miss the microphone as they come back around. You'll immediately hear your room clean up. So think like a studio engineer, think like a venue producer when you're at home doing these things. And I know the resources are endless on this stuff. You Google it and you're going to get a billion results, right? So I always say, reach out to the engineers in your life and ask them for help, because we're all in this boat together, right? And so I think we've been asked, what are the essential components? Start with the room. Get the room as good as you can. And then even if you don't have a lot of money to invest in good microphones, you can get a lot of mileage out of a cheap microphone if the room sounds good. I mean, we've all worked really hard to get our voice and our instruments sounding as best as they can. Why wouldn't we take the next step into our audio chain? And so
thank you so much, Jared. You know, I would actually play devil's advocate with, I totally agree that audio is king, but I think that an essential component of audio is network connection. Oh, and gosh, I almost feel like that is step one, because your first thought, I think, as a musician is, I need to go get a great microphone. Like, I need to go on Amazon or something and figure out like the best thing that I could get into my house. And then you connect all that and you got it all nice and set up, and you actually have like 2 Mbps upload speed and you're toast, and nothing is coming through. And it can be extremely frustrating when you do spend that money. So I would do step 0 as checking your internet, doing a speed test, which is as easy as going on Google and doing a speed test, and then perhaps purchasing an Ethernet cable. And I know that sounds like I'm in the 90s and we have had Wi-Fi for at least a decade here, but it really does make a difference in the variability of the network connection. And so yeah, I just wanted to drop that in. What do you think of all that?
Oh, no, absolutely. There's always going to be a limiting factor from your performance to your audience in this virtual environment. There's always going to be something, right, that throttles you back. And you want to do everything you can to open those up. So Wi-Fi was never designed for any of this. Wi-Fi was designed for ease of use, simplicity, connect and forget about it, right? It was never designed for something like sending HD video and audio to the internet. Ethernet cables absolutely were. And I mean, so many computers nowadays don't even have it. You've got to go out and buy adapters for it. So even adapters can limit you. So you definitely are hitting the nail right on the head. Find the limiting thing and spend your money and your time there first before you move anywhere else.
So just to give something tangible to everyone, if you're curious, go ahead and Google speed test, do a speed test, and it might get a bit slowed down by this Zoom right now. But if you have anything under 10 for both download and upload, you're probably starting to run into a few issues, and that would be a good place to start. So thank you so much, Jared. One more question: what might be the cherry on top if you had, $500 more to spend, $1,000 more to spend? Maybe you got a grant. What would be your nice finishing touch for someone who had some cash weighing down their pocket?
Well, if we're assuming that we've already got a high-speed internet, gigabit internet connection, you're absolutely right. That's step 0. But for me, I think it's, I would probably say a system that I can reliably use is the most helpful thing. So a system that I know, because a lot of times things are going to go wrong and you need to be able to troubleshoot your system easily. So unfortunately, I think it's different for each person, but this is a very nice microphone. This is actually an Ear Trumpet Labs mic. It sounds incredible. My headphones right now, I'm like, oh, it's amazing. But if I don't know how to use my interface, it's again throttling, and it can go down, and I'm like, oh, I don't know what phantom power is, and the mic doesn't even work. So find something that you know how to use and you can spend some time with. That's what I think the cherry on top is. And maybe not the best answer, but
no,
it's what matters.
Basically, it depends, as always.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Jared, and let's meet our next panelists. And we have the pleasure of having them in the same room. Mary and Jaimee, thank you for joining us. So Jaimee Harris is a songwriter. She's been called the next Emmylou Harris with slimly more edge. We were chatting in the waiting room about Jaimee's upcoming virtual reality concert, which is coming up on November 13th. And that's very exciting. And we might talk about that a bit more. The both of you together completed a European tour last year, and you are here from Nashville. And Mary is a singer-songwriter, and Grammy nominated folk singer. Your last album was Rifles and Rosary. Your album Rifles and Rosary Beads won Best Album of the Year at the International Folk Awards in 2019, and nominated for a Grammy of the same title. And what more to say? We'll leave this up a little bit, the bios up a little bit as we chat. Thank you for joining us. And so let's get into it. We're going to talk a little bit now about sound checking, which the two of you have had to do a lot. Can you start by describing a high-risk moment of going live, or a painful story of a live stream gone wrong?
We sure can.
we actually could write an entire book on that.
I can't wait to read it.
Well, just to give everyone a little background, Jaimee and I stream every Sunday at 2:00 Central Time from this very room. We do have an Ear Trumpets Lab microphone, a Myrtle, which has made our life so much better, along with the Scarlett interface. And Jaimee added a compressor, a PreSonus compressor to our rig a couple of months ago. So we keep trying to learn, keep trying to upgrade, keep trying to make it better. Every week, now we have a slideshow in front of our live stream that presents the information that we want to give to the audience. And we're going to eventually turn that into a short video that we're going to have edited, and we'll just keep trying to raise the stakes and keep up with what's possible. Part of our live stream every Sunday is we bring a guest. We have our violin player who lives outside of Venice, Italy. And he's with us every Sunday from his apartment in Italy. And we go on with him every Sunday. And what's the name of the technology we used?
Right now, the technology that we use to bring in guests every Sunday is a web browser-based program called StreamYard.
StreamYard. And it's wonderful, but there's button pushing that has to happen. There's a certain setting for when you're talking and a different setting for when you're playing so that your guitar doesn't sound like a child's toy. And so if the guest forgets to push the button when they play, or if they forget to unpush the button when they speak, we have all kinds of problems. But the idea behind what we're doing, and I think this is a really cool thing, is to bring guests, and we've done 30 now. This Sunday will be number 31. Bring my friends, songwriters that I love, to my fans. And we're also streaming off of their page. And so our hope is also that their fans are going to love us. So we're cross-pollinating. Right away, I know this is a panel about the technology and how to do this well. But right away, it blew my mind, the possibilities, the potential. You hit live and you are now broadcasting all over the world. We have people from Israel, Germany, Hungary, Australia, New Zealand, a lot of our friends in Canada, Holland, France. I mean, it is big, it's global. And this ability, if I want to bring people from wherever they are on planet Earth, if they have a connection that supports this technology, we can bring them in. And so the idea is to share our fan base, and that is just a really beautiful thing. And then the other idea is to be of service. People are very stranded out there in so many places. They're lonely, they're hurting. We have people on our stream who say this is the only thing that they have to look forward to all week. People in hospital, people in nursing homes.
Nursing homes, they can't leave their room.
Trapped in their room in a nursing home. They don't even bring nurses in unless they're not well. Their food is served and that's it. They have no contact with other humans. And so getting it out there in a quality way is really important, but getting it out there is really important. So Jaimee understands the technology far more than I do. But we've sort of, in a way, kind of split roles. It sort of organically, I want to get the nice frame of a shot that I want people to see. I want that rainbow flag. I want that Biden-Harris sign. I want Willie Nelson always to be over my left shoulder. We threw a sheet behind us and put down some twinkle lights. It's a container for the sound in the room. And it also, I think, cheers up the frame. So I'm looking at the frame and Jaimee works on the quality of the sound. And I'll let her speak to, we do sound check our guests the day before the show. And for at least half, if not more, this is their first live stream. So we got to get them from 0 to 1. Right. Fortunately, Jaimee Harris is the most patient and kind person I have ever met. If it were me, I would lose patience with musicians who haven't taken the chance to learn how to do this. But a lot of older musicians, and I am one, just don't want to learn how to do this. They want to just do it. Learning how to do it is a problem. So they want it done for them. And so, Jaimee does that. She walks them through the entire process and sends out a document giving them instruction, much to what Jared already spoke to. But I'll let Jaimee talk about how she sound checks people and gets it up and running for folks on the other side.
Yeah, sorry, did you also get a question?
Yeah. We got a question in that I wanted to throw in before we hop into talking about sound checking. So the question, as far as I could tell, was anonymous, but Teresa might indicate otherwise. Anyway, I was part of a recent Facebook Live performance and I used a large diaphragm condenser mic close to my mouth, which worked well, but other artists had no mic in sight and still sounded good. How might they be setting up their mics? So maybe you have some input there, maybe not. But I wanted to throw that into the mix. And just to your point, Mary, thank you for saying that about the incremental part of it, because I think a lot of artists feel like completely overwhelmed by this, and it's just starting from 0 to 1 and then adding on something new once you feel comfortable. And then by the end of it, you might have multiple camera angles and all sorts of pedals going, and
Right, we're not there yet with multiple cameras or little tracks that the cameras roll on. We're not there yet. But I bet if this keeps going, and apparently in the United States of America it never ends, we're going to be MTV by the time this is over. But we do want to make it a little better every week. But an awful lot of our guests start with just an iPhone. And we can bring them in and it sounds okay. And people are happy to see them and happy to hear them. And, Amy Helm, Levon Helm's daughter, was our guest on Sunday. And she streamed off either an iPad or an iPhone. And it sounded great. And people were so happy to meet her and hear her sing. And it was uplifting to the folks on the other side. I don't want to give advice, but my thought is start with what you have and then build on it. If you think you have to start with an actual television studio, it's overwhelming and it collapses you. It's terrifying and intimidating. Mm-hmm. You start at 0, get to 1. Once you get to 1, I used to talk to my friend Fred Eaglesmith a lot about songwriting. And she said, everybody's trying to hit a home run. I want to hit a single. When you get to first base, then you work your way to second. Get on the base and then look at how to get to second. But anyway, Jaimee?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I think to your question, I just put in the chat for everyone. We've had several people that have just asked us, what are you using? And definitely, I think what Jared said is, and what Mary is talking about as well, is whatever makes you feel the most comfortable is going to be the best thing for you. Because if you're freaking out about not being able to use something, or if you I have a lot of anxiety about a lot of things. And if I am anxious about something, you know what? I don't have all of it's a different kind of energy. Obviously, me transmitting and us communicating through a chat is a little bit different than me being in a room, and there's actual energy that's happening there. So you are going to get 100% of my anxiety coming at you if I'm not comfortable, right? So I just put a little document that just has some information about kind of what we're using, and it links to a bunch of different documents. And at the very end, I put a little video there that our friend Rebecca Loby, who's another folk singer, I actually think she's been on a panel here recently, created recently, where she goes into her live streaming tips. And one of the things that she does is she brings in different friends, and she interviews a great singer in Austin named Lexland. And Lexland, her method is to hide the microphone, because she's been doing this for about 4 years. And she found just that what works best for her, she and her fans, is to not see the microphone. She feels like that's more intimate. So that's her style. With the way that we're set up here, one, we just think it looks cool. So we like to have that ear trumpet in the shot, because it's such a beautiful, the microphones from ear trumpet are a work of art. And so we like it in the shot. But I love the idea of not having the microphone and making it really casual. We could try that, we could try that at some point. Yeah, it depends on, I think, what you're doing. And every live stream is completely different. The ones that we're doing, we're in a conversation with our guests. We're in a conversation with our fans. I've done live streams where I'm performing an entire album from, beginning to end. So it just depends on what you're doing. But as far as the sound checking, I think that really ties in. Like Mary said, we're working with guests that have different levels of expertise. I mean, we've worked with people that have full-blown studios that don't know how to live stream, because it's a completely different art. I try to explain it like, it's almost like the scene in Willy Wonka when they take the giant chocolate bar and they turn it into a lot of pixels and they put it into a tiny, that's what we're doing. We don't have this whole space. We're kind of, and that's why I love these ear trumpet mics too. It's because we're able to send one simple signal audio wise, and it works really well. So the first thing that I do when we confirm a guest for a show is that I have, I'm a huge fan of Gmail and Google everything. So I use kind of a Gmail email template that links to a document that explains everything about the platform that we're using, which for us on Sundays is StreamYard. And so it has, this is the best setup if you can use a computer and a mic and an interface. If that's not possible for you, maybe an iPhone with the Shure M Mv88 or maybe a blue mic, or if that doesn't work, even just headphones can help because they have a little microphone, just whatever is most comfortable for you. And it gives them a chance to experiment with the technology if they like in advance. And I warn them, there's, this document is put together after a while of answering lots and lots of questions. So it's very intense. So I tell them, please do not be overwhelmed by this information. If you have any questions at any time, call me. And then we set up a sound check a day before the show, and we try to schedule them about the same time that the show is, 2 or 2:30 Central Time, so that the lighting is going to be similar and so that the internet connection is going to be similar. Like we've discovered at 7 o'clock in our neighborhood, if we're on Wi-Fi, we can be blurry because there's just so much
volume
yes,
in use. I mean, our wattage is determinant on volume, and there's, we would love to have an Ethernet cable going directly into the main frame, but our supplier, our cable company, won't do that. They won't do that.
They want to sell us Wi-Fi pods or something.
They are only down with Wi-Fi pods, and so we can't have that mainline dependable connection that we would prefer. So there's going to always be variables that you can't control, but we do know for sure that at 7 o'clock it's the worst possible time on every day of the week to do a live show from our studio. So we do it at 2, and we do it at 2 anyway because of time zone differences with Europe. Right. But anyway, go forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, and part of what I do is I also created a document in a Google form that asks them a bunch of questions. What are you using? A computer, a phone, and a tablet? What mic, what gear are you using? What's your default browser? Because for us, if you're using a Mac, you have, there's just different instructions I have to give them if Safari is their default browser. And so I try to, basically it helps me understand what I'm working with before we even sound check. So I'm able to know, what I'm going to need to walk the guests through. And I also ask them, what's your PayPal information? And I put that as the very last question to make sure that people actually fill out the tech form. Because I realized if I say, this is how Mary is going to pay you, then I get more answers, by filling that out. But
hey, thank you. We're going to chat with Reza a little bit, and then we have the pro tips section so we can keep talking all about this. There's probably so much more we could say, but this is so helpful and good to have this granular kind of detail. So we are going to move on to Reza, who is in Toronto. Reza is a record producer, sound engineer, and musician. And Reza and I have been working together in this live stream world in Toronto. Reza moved to Canada from Iran in 2005, and he is the owner of Bamahang Studios and the music director of Godot Art Productions. I don't know if that is still up to date, but and you are tuning in from, that is not a Zoom background, that is the Small World Music Center. So Reza, you're a pro. Tell us about how someone at home might manage multiple inputs. So now we're getting into some fancy stuff. Multiple cameras, multiple microphones. How would you recommend they go about that?
Okay, so it's a good question. There are different ways of doing things. Luckily, in this time, I get calls from people like, "Hey, I have $100 and I want to buy a microphone." And I can think only of 2 to 3 microphones that work in that price range. Or some people call me like, "Hey, I want to spend $9,000 to $10,000 on a microphone, and I only know of 4 microphones in that price." But when you call me and ask I need a microphone and my budget is between $500 to $1,500, then we all getting into option anxiety because they're 1,500 models of microphones in that price range, and what works for you best. So I've been so lucky that Long and McQuaid Music Store in Toronto, they're giving me all the new microphones coming out every year for a couple of weeks, so I can take them to my studio and play with them and figure out how they work. So these microphones are between $100 to $15,000, and had a chance to play with all of them and then know all these microphones, which is really good. Now I can recommend which one is good. So if you want to use, and there are two different ways of setting up. Like I have a setup at my venue, which I'm using a console and all these sources of microphones up to 24 channel coming into my console. And then I have assigned different outputs, and I'm going to tell you why. And then one of the outputs is going to my live stream. So I can narrow down all those 24 microphones, mix them, but it's going to be a different mix that I'm hearing from my speakers in the venue, what I'm sending to live stream. It's totally different. I'll tell you why. One of our first experiences of live streaming in this venue is I had a blues trio, and it was a bass, drums, and a guitar player who had two Fender guitar amps, a twin and a hot rod, both cranked to 9. And 30 seconds after the first song, I got a call in the middle of live streaming from one of the people like, hey, I can't hear any guitar in the live stream. I was like, oh, okay. So because that guitar is too loud in the room, I can't really hear anything other than guitar. So I had to dial it in because like it was overpowering the whole room. After that, I had to set up a matrix out from my console that it's a separate mix than my mains. And then I can sound check that in my closed headphones, make sure I get the right balance, and then send that left, right out to my stream. So that's my venue setup. When it comes to home, then you can have a mixer, 6 channel, 8 channel, 4 channel, depends on how many inputs you want to have. So if you have like 4 inputs, 6 inputs, whatever you need, you can use a mixer. It could be an analog board, simple. Mackie makes things from like $100, $200 up to whatever you want to pay. The more you pay, you get more options of like EQs and compressors and internal effects. And some of them, like the Allen & Heath Z series, they come with a USB out into your computer. So you don't really need an external interface. You can mix your thing in your computer, in your mixer, and then send a mix out through USB cable into your computer. So that's going to help you with your situation of dealing with multiple microphones. The other way is you can use an audio interface with multiple inputs. So you'll get a PreSonus or Focusrite, and
oh, we lost Reza a little bit. Let's see if we get him back. In the meantime, we are taking questions. We're a little bit tight on time, so we're gonna probably, Reza's back. We're gonna probably start taking those questions. So feel free to pop them in the Q&A. And yeah, sorry, Reza, you froze a bit, so I was just
I don't know why that happened. This been
no
a little bit shaky today. Okay.
Yeah.
So and I'm gonna go a little bit back. I don't know how far you had me.
I think you were just talking about the other option being an interface.
Yeah, so the other option will be interface. I'm a big fan of high res audio, good quality. Like here in my venue, I have 2 different interfaces. One of them is a $9,000 direct out technology with 64 in and out and built-in 32 channel of preamps. I never ever use that for live streaming because I want to make it so simple. And next to me, I have a $200 Behringer Euphoria. That's my go-to for live streaming because I don't want to deal with like hundreds of options. I mean, that interface, you need an extra computer to run that. Obviously, when I'm recording for my productions and albums and stuff, then I use that one. But for live streaming, I only use this one. So with your interface, you can have multiple inputs and do everything else in your DAW. So you use a software like, let's say, Logic, and then you get an interface with 8 inputs. You can have 8 microphones going into your Logic. Then you need an extra application, which is the best I found, is called Soundflower, which gets a bus out from your Logic Pro. Then you can assign that to your OBS or your StreamYard or your Zoom. So that's a virtual, that's actually a virtual routing inside your computer. And that helps you to run signal from your Logic Pro into your streaming platform. And then you can do all your EQ and compressors and adding reverbs and do all the fancy stuff inside your computer, and you don't need to have a big console. So that's the part with audio. And multiple sources for video. The easy way is you can have a couple of USB cameras, like webcams. You get, if your computer has only like 2-3 USB inputs, then you get one of those USB hubs, and then you can switch 2-3 USB cameras. On OBS, you can have different sources, or you can assign different scenes for each camera. And the good thing about OBS is you can assign hotkeys. So you go A for camera 1, B for camera 2, C for camera 3, and then easily switch between them and use a cheaper, more affordable cameras. Logitech makes really good cameras. You can also hook up your phones as external camera to your OBS and use those stuff. That's the cheaper way, affordable way. And then at my venue, what I'm using, I have a Blackmagic Design ATEM Pro ISO, which is an external device that gets 4 HDMI cables. Then I can have 4 cameras pointing at my stage. These are all going to be big cameras, DSLRs, full frame output. Then I can switch in that thing. I have an extra display so I can see a preview of my cameras. It's like a broadcast studio. Then I go camera 1, camera 2, camera 3. That's the fancy version. The other one is the easy version. But there's an issue that when you add more gear, like when I started here with a webcam, and that worked well for like 6 months before I get into a video switcher. And when I got the video switcher, I got like, there's a latency between my video and audio. Why? Because I have a lot of video processing happening, and then it lags like a second or like half a second, and my audio is earlier. So I have to go into OBS and adjust the latency and make my audio video sound at the same time. And then I went from like 4/3 or micro 4/3 cameras to full frame. I realized that, then I'm lagging in my internet bandwidth, because then there's a lot of information in the bit rate in every frame that my bit rate needs to handle that. So then I got into network congestion issues. So it's not that easy that I add 4 cameras and a switcher, I'm getting all of a sudden a better quality. I need to solve tons of other issues. But once we get that simple, if we don't have thousands of dollars of budget and we don't want to get into like troubleshooting, then I suggest we start simple. That's what everybody said from the beginning. So we start simple, but yeah, multiple sources. You can go through a mixer. Mixers can have, if you're using digital mixer, they all have connection to your computer. If you're using analog mixers, some of them, they have converters in them. Some of them not. Then you can go left, right through to an audio interface. If you're working in a bigger venue that you might need to assign different outputs from your console. My console, I have 4 sets of outputs. One goes to my left, right. One goes to my monitors because I have a 6-piece band on stage. I want to give them monitor mix. Then I have a matrix out that goes stereo to my live stream. And then I have multi-track recording because at the same time I'm doing live streaming, I want to be able to do a raw multi-track of my audio, because if something happens, then I can edit and do a better mix after that.
Thanks, Reza. This is so great, and you always give really good detail and everything. And I can see in the chat that everyone is really appreciating a lot of the naming, the actual software, and the mics and the cameras and that sort of thing. So we are going to continue this discussion, but loop everyone in. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe that it's possible for other people to see the Q&A as they're popping up, but I will read out some of the questions that are coming through the Q&A, and feel free also, as you're looking at things, the panelists, to answer some of those questions, type them out if you're seeing them pop up and you know the answer. So I'll start with one, so it's a software question from Francine Honey. I run my streams using Restream, a Focusrite Claret, and Logic Pro, mostly as a monitor. I've had a few streams where a loopback happens about 15 minutes into the stream. Do I need another DAW or other software to monitor the feed and hear the audio being streamed?
What I usually do is, if I want to make sure how the audio is going out, well, let's step back a little bit, because when I'm mixing, if I'm mixing a record that's going to go out as an album or like a DVD in the past, right now people uploading videos online, then I think different than when I'm mixing for live stream. So the best way is, if you're doing a sound check, you do a private link on your YouTube before going live. And then when you mix the audio, you can monitor that on your phone as you're going. Obviously, there's going to be a delay, a latency of like 20 seconds, maybe sometimes 15 to 20 seconds. But that's the best source, because you can hear what's going on to air. If you're mixing in your DAW, you might get a good result, but you don't know what you're sending out. The best way is you monitor your live stream through a test, and all the time. I have two headphones all the time during live streaming. One is going to my phone, and I disconnect from my Wi-Fi or whatever. It's going to use the LTE because I don't want to have too much pressure on my internet. But I monitor what's happening in my final live stream with a set of headphones, and I have another headphone that goes to my interface that I can monitor what's happening inside the computer. I don't know if I answered that question. Okay, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I think you did answer the question. And let us know if you have any follow-up questions there, Francine. Another question came from Jonathan Carroll. I chronically contend with decibel volume disparity between my and my host's feeds. They're comparatively astoundingly louder. Any tips? Mary and Jaimee, looks like maybe you have experience here.
We do. So I would love to know what you're using. I know that a question that several people that have ear trumpets ask that we learned also is that, and they say it comes with a little card, is that the gain required on an ear trumpet mic is quite hot. So what we've added to our setup is called a pre-Sonus studio channel. So it has a little bit of compression and EQ and an additional gain. So for us, our ear trumpet mic is actually plugged into the studio channel, and then the studio channel is connected to the interface. And that will help to get you a lot more gain on that ear trumpet mic where you don't clip. But what we do, and I forgot to mention this earlier, is I have a private Facebook group that I'm the only member of. And when we live stream our guests, we actually make the stream go live so that you can hear what it sounds like in real time, because what you hear in the studio is very different than what you actually hear on Facebook.
And that's what Reza was just describing.
Exactly right. So it's really important to do that. And And sometimes if someone isn't using any type of external mic, we've all heard it in Zoom meetings when someone is just speaking into the computer, like you hear, Mike,
It's
you hear
louder.
that super harsh, really loud sound. One thing that you can do, it's not the best, but if you're on a Mac, I'm sure PC too, you do have a little control of the output and input gain if you just go into your computer preferences. And that's the best. But sometimes in order so it's not so crazy, it's just good to hear what both sound like at the same time in a real live sound check and just adjust if we need to turn up a little bit or ask the guest to turn down, we have to do that because you don't want it to be super alarming. I hope that helps.
Yeah, totally. Okay, maybe we've addressed this already, but maybe not, so I will ask it and then you guys let me know. Not sure how to monitor audio. This is from Catherine Cadley. Not sure how to monitor audio during the live stream. We use a Myrtle through Focusrite Scarlett into OBS. We make a recording to test and then listen back for levels, lag, etc. Is there a better way to monitor? I think we've touched on this a bit.
Yeah, I think that was exactly what we talked. So it's better to go a test stream into Facebook Live or YouTube Live, and then test your levels there.
There have been a lot of questions, although I know it's actually quite straightforward. So maybe we could talk about this about bypassing Zoom settings in order to make sure that you're not getting the talk feedback cancellation, the voice, someone give me the words, please. The voice cancellation feedback. Anyway, maybe someone can help me here. I can't come up with the words. Reza, I know we've talked about this. Maybe others have experience with it to speak to this.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a noise cancellation thing in Zoom that makes your voice or whatever music sound like underwatery. So it's a lot of compression on that, and that's designed to get the rumble or the air noise, or like there's these plugins that we always using called Z noise or X noise, or like these isotope noise reductions. It's like you're cranking the threshold to maximum to get the noise so it sounds like, you know, you're under a blanket. But that's designed because a lot of people using Zoom in like noisy environments, and we don't want to get that in the thing. But once you want to have a music going, then that's going to affect the quality of music really bad. So you can get into that option and you know, disable that thing while you're playing a music, because you don't want that. Obviously, we talked about like how to have a nice room treatment and a good acoustic. So, you know, you're not going to be in a noisy environment playing your music. And it's better to bypass all those like noise reduction or like whatever can affect the sound. So you want to send it as clean as possible to your audience.
There was a question that touched on this. I want to see if anyone has experience with it. I myself have experience with it, using what you have in the house. So using your phone and maybe your friend's phone and maybe your other friend's phone as NDI sources. So basically that would be when you download software or use different kinds of browser-based plugins that allow you to use your phone camera and send it over Wi-Fi, like over your local network, to the computer that is doing the streaming. Do any of you have experience with that? And what can you say about that? Mary and Jaimee look like they like this idea and haven't heard of it yet. Reza, do you have any experience with it?
Not really. No. That's new to me. Yeah.
So someone did ask about it, and myself, because I'm like a low gear, like learning about the techie stuff, but I don't like owning gear. I really don't. Yeah. So when I did recently a live stream from my house with Jeremy, we ended up using 3 camera angles. One was the main computer, one was my phone, and one was my friend's phone. And there was a little bit of delay, but we basically, the thing to look up would be NDI. You might have to pay a small amount of money for the, you need an application on your phone, and then we were running it through OBS, and OBS is able to then use that NDI input as a source, which you can add in as a source, and then boom, you have a new camera angle to work with. They are a little bit finicky and tricky, so definitely do some testing. And it won't be perfect, but I quite like it for the dynamic sort of application of multiple camera angles on a budget. So something to think about.
Yeah, that's cool. I've done the thing, where you use EpoCam, which is an app, right, for use to turn your iPhone into a webcam. And I have to say, I've done one thing with multiple camera angles, and it was on Zoom. And once again, I think it depends on the kind of show you're doing, because I was like having a conversation with people, and then someone else was switching the cameras for me. It was run by like a production company. And to me, as a folk singer that was singing it felt a little bit awkward, because it wasn't a situation where I'm playing a show. I was talking to somebody, and then like the camera angle would change. So I guess like in that situation, it was very awkward. And I was like, I really feel like this is not, so I think, but if you're doing a more like a highly produced show, then of course that's great. But yeah, I think just context always.
Yeah, sometimes if you've got multiple performers and you want a close up, it does help, but I wouldn't move them around much more than that. Jared is coming in with a dissident opinion. Wi-Fi cameras aren't as reliable as wired, and I try wired if at all possible, for sure. And another option is a long wire with a webcam if you are a gear averse like myself. So we are coming to the end of this fantastic hour together, a really lively conversation. We can hardly get a word in edgewise, and it's really, I like that kind of chat. So thank you. I'm going to invite Teresa back in to lead us out. And thanks so much, Teresa, for monitoring, and Jared for monitoring quietly all these questions. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Blanche. And thank you all attendees for joining this webinar presented by FAI and Ear Trumpet Labs, a craft builder of unique microphones with distinctive designs, great feedback rejection, a natural tone for acoustic instruments and voices, and so many people on this call who use them. This is so exciting. Thank you, Ear Trumpet Labs, and you can find their recommended models at eartrumpetlabs.com/livestream. FAI offers these webinars free of charge, not only to you, our members, and the community, but the industry at large. We would appreciate any support you can offer to help offset our programming costs so that we can continue to do so. And to make a tax-deductible donation, please visit folk.org/donate. We hope that you found the ideas presented here useful to you. As Blanche mentioned, really, it's just been a whirlwind of questions, and I will direct you to Farm's weekly Tuesday Tech Talks as an excellent place for smaller scale, deep dive conversations into particular issues. This is definitely telling Folk Alliance that we need to do more content of this nature. This webinar will be made available on our YouTube channel. An immense thank you to our esteemed panelists, Reza Moghaddas, Jared Rivers, Mary Gauthier, Jaimee Harris, and Blanche Israël. Stay safe and connected, everybody, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.